Alright everyone, Cody here. Welcome back to ChickenHole base. So as you can see, the base is pretty crowded. There's lots of material around, well, odds and ends, things that are going to be stored for a long period of time before they're useful. And so as promised in the last episode, I'm going to be taking care of that today. So I'm currently in the rover. We're going to go scout for a location to use as a dedicated storage. So let's drive on through here. The original plan was just to put the material over here on the other side of this hill behind these trees. But I think there's actually a better spot just a little bit farther away. So let's actually go up there and have a look. This is still pretty close. Yes. So I would turn into it right about here. Yep. In that area right up there. See, it's behind trees. It's behind the hill from ChickenHole base, so it's out of sight. Won't be able to keep a direct eye on the materials, but there's plenty of places to like hide cameras. Let's see if we can drive in there. We'll have to set up a signal repeater for RoboCody, but that's not too difficult. Yeah, this little area, pretty shielded. Relatively flat. So that'll work just fine for the storage space. We will have to mow down most of the sagebrush to help with fire danger. These trees can probably stay. Yeah, that's a lot of work. Let's get RoboCody going. Set up the signal repeater and have him come over here with the mower to mow some of this brush, and then move the materials over. So I'm going to talk over this time lapse. RoboCody's just got the mower attachment. We're going through and mowing down the sagebrush, the grass, and other dead materials, knocking it back so that the fire is less likely to travel through this area. This is both to protect my materials that I'm storing and also to prevent any potential fire that I inadvertently start from escaping out into the rest of the area. Now, of course, Mars wouldn't have this problem, but rocks and stuff are all over the place, and we would have to move them around to make the area level and usable. Anyway, we got the sun setting. Oh, that's very pretty. I should have left that going for longer. Yeah, this is the second day, and we have RoboCody clearing out a little bit more space. This particular space here is so that the rover can turn around, back the trailer into that area, and then pull out. Speaking of trailer, we've got that being loaded on now. RoboCody's pushing the truck and trailer around, hooking things up, and good to go. And we actually have RoboCody going to move the rover, and he's got that new capability. He's able to back it up and do all sorts of stuff, basically everything I can do. And move some tanks onto the trailer here. There's some of these fuel tanks that we've gathered. And just strap them all on and take them off to the storage area. I got RoboCody moving the cameras around here. He went back to get the truck. See, backing the trailer into that space. We probably should have had it just come forward and then take the tanks off the side, but hindsight. He has no trouble moving materials. It just takes a little bit longer. Okay, and the truck goes away. RoboCody comes back for the camera, and we go back for another load. I believe this time we load the bricks. This stainless steel plate, I think we're going to actually use it as a water collection to pull water out of the atmosphere. But for now, we're just using it as something to hold the bricks onto the trailer. We were using it to shield the bricks from the weather, but now I think I'll use something else for that. It's so cool watching the bricks being moved. You gotta stack each one of them into little piles and move them. This took a long time. You can see the days slowly getting darker. And of course, we move over to the storage area. We got some plywood, which we set up on top of some wooden blocks. These are pressure treated wood. This just gives it an air gap between the bricks and the ground so that moisture doesn't wick up, and also stop the termites from getting up into there. So we're just stacking the bricks nice and neat. A little bit neater than we even had them before. And once we get all the bricks off, we should also move the stainless steel plate. See, we got a piece of plywood and a tire holding it down on top of the bricks. And here we have the camera up on the hill looking down actually at the pile of junk, which I mentioned in the last episode. I got RoboCody moving things around. Also picking up little bits of plastic. We're trying to minimize microplastics. So we just tipped the barrel over. There was more water in there than I thought. So it's a little bit of water wastage, but I don't think it'll hurt us too bad. Here's the next day. We're basically doing the same thing again. We got some wood that we're loading on there, stuff that we don't need right away. All the little flower pots and hoses and stuff that is not going to be used. And look at that beautiful image of the sun as it goes down. Little scratches on the lens causing it to have the rainbowy patterns. Okay, now once we get all the stuff mowed away, we mow the sagebrush and grass down, and there's that pile of junk moved. See, we got both rovers here, and all of the other materials are compacted down to a much smaller space and organized much more neatly. And in case you're wondering, the little rover has been absent from the base. This is because I had to drive it in order to pick up the larger rover. But now that RoboCody has the capability of moving vehicles, we were able to go down and pick it up. Unfortunately, I didn't film any of that. Since we're on the topic of cleaning up the base, I also commanded RoboCody to remove the fire pit. Opportunities to use it were just getting very few and far between. Besides, it doesn't really fit into the whole theme of the project. So now for some actual work on the habitat. So you got RoboCody in the greenhouse marking out 2 circular holes, one on each of the bottoms of the 2 tanks. This is to provide a passage between them, and also the material that we're cutting out here will be used to make up the main doors of the greenhouse. I didn't want to remove the bottoms of the tanks entirely because I think it is a good idea to have the greenhouse have some sort of divider. Basically have it separated into 2 sections, perhaps by a curtain or a screen that we can hang in this hole. That way, if we have an insect infestation in one end, it won't spread to the other as easily. In the end, I did decide to go for a oval opening rather than a circle, just because it's easier to move through. Next, I had RoboCody install a brace under the front keel of the greenhouse. Since we're not putting a barrel of water here, I needed something else to support it. To fill the gap between the tank and the foundation at the rear of the greenhouse, I had RoboCody remove the tank so we had room to work, and then cut some pieces of wood to fit using a chainsaw. Once the wood was screwed into place, he then put some plastic siding over top of it and formed it to shape to protect it from the weather. Now to clean up some of the construction refuse and move the 2 tanks back together. Once again, a beautiful sunset. Unfortunately, we're going to be putting the tank in the way. So now it's time to move some earth. Have RoboCody dig up some of the hillside and then move that dirt into underneath of the greenhouse. Now the light, fluffy, dry dirt is actually going to make for a fairly good insulator. This will insulate the greenhouse from the cold ground beneath it. Now, of course, on Earth, this isn't really a big deal. The Earth is actually warmer than the air in the winter. On Mars, however, you can't rely on that because the ground's permanently frozen. But of course, the main reason for moving the dirt is to make the ground level. You know, the siding is all straight and square, and the ground is just being moved up to meet it. Speaking of siding, that is what's going to be worked on next. First, he had to carve the front porch area to match the contour of the rest of the side of the greenhouse. This actually took quite a while because it wasn't really matching up properly, but it did end up getting it in the end. Once that was complete, he put on some boards to screw the siding to. You'll notice that some of the boards had to be put up a little bit higher than the others. And this is because the ground was not able to be moved down far enough. Ran into solid rock there. But from there, it was just a matter of screwing on the siding. Okay. Where are they all coming from? Maybe when I open the hatch, they'll go away, huh? Let's see here. Well, that is all of the RoboCody specific tasks for now. In fact, it's my time to shine. We're going to be starting in on the plumbing, and in order to put the fittings into the sides of the tank, that's a two-person job. Somebody needs to be on the outside holding it, while somebody on the inside turns it. And as sophisticated as RoboCody has become, that's something that I'm still needed for. So, let me get suited up. I'll go out and help him. Okay. Now, my last command to RoboCody was to take a tank up the hill. I didn't give it any instructions on how to do it, so let's see how he's doing. I guess that's one way to do it. All right. So as you can see, we've got all the fittings in. These two out the front of this tank here are for hot water. We're gonna have a solar water heater sitting here collecting sunlight, especially during the winter, which will feed warm water into this tank, heating it up so as to keep the greenhouse warm. You can also see over here that the junk pile has been moved, which is very nice. You can walk straight through here without trouble. There's still some things that we've left here, but that's just because they'll be used in the immediate future on this particular part of the project. The pumpkin right there, we've decided that it's going to go on the front of the greenhouse and act as an airlock. I was going to do something else for that, but you know, it's about the right size and shape. I think we'll be able to use it for that purpose. So there'll be an airlock on the front of the greenhouse. Now if we come over here, where RoboCody has moved the soil from this location to underneath the greenhouse, you can see we've uncovered a deposit of clay. And particularly, this is bentonite clay. This forms as volcanic ash reacts with water to form the clay particles. Which makes sense, because these hillsides are made out of volcanic ash that is laid down and cemented together. And over time, it weathers to form the clay. So all of this rock is volcanic ash. But it does appear that some of the ash does not convert to the clay, like this layer here, whereas other layers, like this lighter colored layer, does convert to the clay. Perhaps the composition's a little bit different, a different stage of the eruption, perhaps a different eruption or something. But either way, it is much more susceptible to erosion because it weathers so easily. You can see how it erodes away much more quickly. And actually, I've realized that what happens here over time is the clay expands and contracts as it moistens and dries out. So it's actually lifting the rock and dropping it over and over again. And that's actually causing the rocks to break apart. So the chemical weathering is causing mechanical weathering to occur. In fact, if you remember when we dug the B-hole, here we go. I've cut a few slits in it. And listen to the rock. The water that was cooling the saw was reacting with the rocks and making crackling noises. What was happening there was the volcanic ash was forming clay and expanding and breaking the rocks, which gives me an idea. So we've collected some of the bentonite here. I'm going to have RoboCody perform some tests. Let's see if we can put this to use. Maybe we could even use it to break rocks intentionally, or perhaps bake bricks or something. Not entirely sure yet. But it'll be nice to use some of the materials we've got on hand. We will have to keep in mind that the ground here is lifting and shrinking, but I don't think it'll be enough to really worry about. We are designing the habitat to flex quite a bit. Anyway, let's go back into my little cubby here. Oh, he does. There we go. Are there more of them? These hardy stowaway insects from Earth. Ugh. Anyway, many people have wondered what I do. I'm in here in a little temporary habitat waiting for the main habitat to be constructed. And besides dealing with these insects, I try to keep exercised and keep strong. Got enough room here to do some push-ups and stuff. But since RoboCody's been requiring less and less intervention, I've been able to do things that I'm not normally able to, like catch up on reading. In fact, I think this is the first actual physical book that I've read in several years. This is The Price of Creation by my friend Lance Conrad. I was on his Story Stream podcast some months ago. I'll leave a link somewhere for you guys to go watch that if you haven't seen it. He's won the Best of State Award again, so I figured I'd pick up his books and see what the hubbub's about. And you know, I quite like it. It's a wonderful little story. It kept my attention, and I'm excited to read the rest of them. If any of you are also looking for some reading material, I've talked to the author, and he's offered to give us a discount code for 20% off and free shipping. Give you guys a little bit of a deal there. And also, part of any revenue that comes from the sale of those books will go to help funding this project. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time.